I don't think you've ever gallivanted a day in your life.
No, I really haven't.
No.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Hi, this is Stephanie Borden, FC Dallas fan since 2014 and Third Degree listener since 2018. Third Degree the podcast is brought to you by Soccer 90, your source for FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. Check out the new arrivals dropping daily. Gear from leagues around the world. Fresh Serie A, Premier League, Bundesliga, and of course MLS and FC Dallas club merch available now. Remember, Third Degree listeners get 20% off at soccer90.com with promo code Third Degree. Some exclusions may apply.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode numbered
158
of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, it's me, Peter. And on this digital machine called the internet, I've got my friend Dan Crooke here. Hey, Dan, howdy.
Howdy. Howdy, how are you?
Are you correcting me, or are you just trying hard to pronounce it like a Texan?
I'm not sure where the emphasis is supposed to be. It's not really a word we have, so...
You're still learning how to say howdy?
Yeah.
Let's try it one more time. Howdy, Dan.
What's up?
And your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder of thirddegree.net, the amazing Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hi, Peter. That's a nice introduction, considering that I have to start with a correction, which is not fun.
Is this are you having to re-stuff back in the Huntsman dump from last week?
Yeah, Coach got me, man. He got me good.
No. Do you think he did it on purpose?
No. I think it's a culture barrier based on, what leagues and what country you come from. If you follow me on Twitter or Facebook or the website or whatever, I would have already posted this correction, but I feel like I have to do it on here. You remember last week I said that Coach told me, I asked him about Martin Paes and how they only had him till like July and then they were going to make a decision. And Coach interrupted me and said, no, we have him for the whole season. Apparently, to him, for the whole season means the European season. He meant basically what I was actually asking him. So like in his mind, he's saying, no, we got him for the whole season. Yeah, the whole season, no problem. He's talking about like till the end of May, July. I think it's technically July. So why that's a barrier to communication, because I literally was saying you have him for a couple more months, till July, basically. So, communication, language barrier, perhaps, culture barrier, whatever. The bottom line is they have paused through end of July, basically, and they have a bye on him. They have to make a decision. So it's the same as it was before. He just got me with the emphatic end of the season thing, not meaning the end of the MLS season.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I have a much bigger thing that I want to talk to you about, but before we get to that now leads me to ask the question. They're going to buy him, right? Or extend his loan or do something. There's no way they're going to let this guy leave at this point after as well as he's played and as questionable as Jimmy was in the U.S. Open Cup.
I mean, certainly based on performance, there's no question. I mean, the only reason they wouldn't be is if the buy is astronomical or he just says no thanks and wants to go back to wherever he was before. Which is entirely possible. People have done things
I don't know.
like that on.
Him and that girlfriend are living pretty much the high life in Uptown right now. Yeah. It looks like they just got an apartment. I can't imagine he's leaving anytime soon.
Well, it doesn't seem like it, but I mean, things as good as it's going, there are other factors, but I can't imagine they're not going to. And as soon as I get another chance to talk to Coach, hopefully within the next couple of days, I'll try and pin him down again and also ask him why he hooked me like that. But I didn't do it on purpose, I'm sure. It's just a breakdown in communication.
You think?
Yeah, no, I don't find him to be duplicitous. He's definitely straightforward so far. Not necessarily 100% an open book, but not clowning around or messing with me or anything like that. I don't think.
Okay.
So
his girlfriend's now the official spokesmodel for some perfume I was told on Instagram the other day.
Yeah, she's kind of a big deal.
I bet she smells like a candy store.
Wow.
Just my guess, based on that perfume. Yeah, well, okay. Hey, you sound so uncomfortable, Dan. You don't take it serious, my friend. All right, so I do have a very pressing matter that I think is of the utmost importance here on this specific podcast. I don't think there's any other podcast in the world that is as worried and is focused and is honed in on this one particular topic, and that is the emerging rumor that one Thomas Roberts has returned to the mothership. Buzz Carrick, come in,
Wait,
Buzz.
he works for the ticket?
No, he's 100% in Dallas, spotted by many people. There's been a couple of reports that have come out that said that he's, has gone back to FC Dallas early, ended his loan early, and I can confirm that's true. So he is back early. I think I'm not 100% privy to what all's going on, of course, but obviously in this particular case, that doesn't happen if Dallas doesn't ask for him. So this is 100% my part, them asking for him to come back. I think it's because they still have this problem in midfield where they have Brandon and Paxton are playing an immense amount of games. And the next couple of choices, as we saw from the Open Cup game, are just okay. And even Steve Davis mentioned that they already put Thomas on their Open Cup roster. He wasn't on the game day roster, but he was on their extensive Open Cup roster. So they were already anticipating he would be back for, relatively quickly for this sequence of stuff. So he is back. I'm sure he'll get every chance out there to get a shot, to get time and games in midfield. We've been talking about since December. We've been talking about the idea that they needed a guy who can start 15 games in midfield because you want both Paxton and Brandon to be on 27 or 28 starts, not 34. That's pure basic roster management math. So Thomas is back. I believe he's trained at least once already. So, what happened over in Austria, I'm not 100% privy. The information I got is that they have a very defensive-minded coach, and then they got into a relegation battle. And, Thomas isn't necessarily a grind it out and draw and get 5 red cards kind of physical dude. And apparently this guy likes that kind of player. So Thomas wasn't getting the increased minutes that I think he should have gotten, obviously, over there. But that has nothing to do with why he's back. He's back because FC Dallas needed him, basically.
Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to guess it's going to take a while for him to get acclimated to the team and the system and all of that stuff.
Maybe. I mean, that depends on Thomas. If he's used to playing in the kind of system that this coach runs, he's a pretty ideal fit for the role that they're having Paxton do. Thomas originally was a pure 10, but, even when he was here and since he's left, he's been adapting his game to that more of a Paxton style 8. We even saw that before he left. We saw him starting to begin to press and do the right things there. So, and also that could be impacted by the fact that they've run. Remember, I told you 2 weeks ago that they were running or maybe it was a week ago, they were running a new formation.
Yeah.
They used that formation at the end of the Open Cup game. I don't know if you guys noticed.
I'll explain that later.
Yeah. It was a 4-2-3-1. So basically it's a shape that uses now in the Open Cup game, it was Velasco that was doing it at the end, playing that 10 behind above a double pivot. That also fits Thomas's profile. So There's a couple of ways and a couple of tweaks that this coach is doing that fit quite well with what Thomas is capable of. You could even look at a false sort of wing that he would play if you were to stick him out there. It's going to look fairly similar to some of the things that Ariola and Velasco are giving you anyway, too. So lots of ways he could fit.
Well, we certainly have a lot at stake with Thomas here on Third Degree, the podcast, because I think we've pretty much established our entire reputation on his future. We had anointed him at some point. And so we sent him away. If you love something, you set it free. It will return if it really loves you. And it's returned because I know Thomas loves us and he's going to do great things. Right, Buzz?
Well, I still think the kid is very talented. He is cursed with this problem that a lot of modern 10s have, which was that the Dallas doesn't play a system that uses that kind of player anymore. As most people don't. It's the Mehmet Ozil problem. I think Thomas has got a whole lot of skill on the ball. When he came out of the academy, I think probably still this is true. He's the best ball handler I've ever seen in the academy. Best passer, best dribbler. He would dribble through 5 or 6 dudes and
better
score.
Than that kid that you talked about on the U14s?
Well, I did say come out of the academy. Yeah, I mean, that's Salcedo's in the same class. except he's 13. So Thomas was 18 when and a pro. So all he needs to do is pick up some of this adaptation, which he has been. And he's had some pretty solid performances from time to time with the first team. I think for whatever reason Lucci soured on him. Maybe I don't know what he wasn't doing that Lucci liked or didn't like. But I think the way he plays actually really fits this new coach. I think it's going to work out well. This coach likes technical players and smart players, and Thomas is both of those things. So I'm really optimistic that he's going to actually be able to get some good time here.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Thomas's attitude about is it based on whatever the situation was back in Austria. Is he glad to leave because he wasn't getting enough time? Does he really think he can put in some minutes here and win a regular rotation spot in the rotation, whatever? So it'll be fun to see what.
Yeah.
How long has it been since we've seen Thomas play for this team? When was the last time he played minutes for the senior team? Was it 2021? Was it the pandemic season?
I think it was his rookie season,
2019,
when he made like 7 starts and then he stopped playing basically after
that. I feel like it's been an age since we've seen him play. So, we may see a kid show up that looks very different than he did when he left 2.5 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, you're talking about a kid that left as a kid and now he's coming back at, I don't know what he is now, 20 or 21, and he's been living in a different country. So you're talking about an adult. So things like he's probably seen a different part of the world, different perspective. He's been on his own. He's not here with his parents anymore. It's like these are some pretty critical years he's had. He could be a very different person, very, very different player. He could be focused or he could be gone.
What if he shows up and he's like a super blonde-haired version lookalike of Tanner Tessman?
Well, he's certainly tallest Tanner, pretty much.
Yeah.
Certainly with FC shorts, a little height in midfield is not going to bother me at all. Thomas is like, I think he's 6'1", with that kind of ability is pretty nice. So if you have a guy like a little bit of that kind of height in midfield, it's going to go a long way to help stem this set piece problem that Dallas has this year.
Well, I hope with time and Austrian chocolate and meat, he got a little swole. That's what I'm hoping for. Swole Thomas Roberts.
I'm not holding my breath for that, but I think he'll probably have filled out some.
All right. Well, Thomas Roberts has returned. We are excited here at Third Degree, the podcast. Okay, there are 2 games to talk about. First off is the 0-0 result up at Red Bull Arena against aforementioned Red Bulls. Dan, you wrote up a fantastic review of the game. Why don't you run it down for everybody?
Oh, no, not this again. Very much one of those trust the process games, I felt. One of the games that you could definitely say under Lucci, maybe that's a blowout loss. And under Nico, with that whole defense-first mentality, absorbing pressure, frustrating the opposition, and then just in the last 10, 15 minutes trying to really go for it and sort of nick something. One of those that, you can kind of say on both sides of it. I think actually I put in there, on one hand, that's a game that a Lucci team loses. On the other hand, a Lucci team plays a little bit more positively from the start, and maybe they kind of make something happen early on. But obviously, having a second consecutive clean sheet on the road is something that the club are extremely proud of for the 12th time in franchise history. I thought...
That is an amazing stat, by the way, that this club's been around for 27 years, 26 years.
Yeah.
And they've only had 12 shutouts on the road in all that time.
Well, 12 times they've had 2 in a row.
Back-to-back shutouts.
Oh, I was like, wow, that is really bad. Okay, yeah. that's better. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I should learn to listen. Sorry, Dan.
And they've never had 3 in a row, so I guess we'll find out somewhat soon how that plays out. I believe against Sporting Kansas City, right? Interesting game. Obviously, Martin Paes was phenomenal. As you kind of mentioned, if they don't buy him, they're stupid at this point. Definitely, the team definitely struggled against the press that New York put in. Kind of interesting to see him trying to watch them try to go down the right, get frustrated, go down the left, and kind of almost play into Lewis Morgan. Anyway, I'm doing a real shit job of this. I don't know if you want to Take over, Buzz.
Well, before you, let me just ask this question, because I think this is the thing that is my biggest takeaway from the game, which is this weird internal struggle that I'm having with this season so far, which is I know that the rule is the guiding light is win at home and tie on the road. And I know that good teams that get far in this league know how to strangle the life out of games on the road, and many teams do it differently. A lot of teams that have been very successful in this league do it the way that Nico is doing it. But holy crap, it is boring as F, and it's hard to watch, and it's not a lot of fun. And I'm just wondering, Buzz, from your perspective, is this what we should just pretty much prepare ourselves for when this team goes on the road for the rest of the season? Or is this a learning curve that they will feel more comfortable in opening up and trying to do more until the last 5 minutes when they're grasping at straws trying to just make something happen?
Well, I hope it's not the whole season, but you're talking about a team that was atrocious last year, the last several years on the road, and giving up goals was their big problem last year. So I think that early on, for sure, he's using this kill the game philosophy, kill the game mentality, and it was very clear that it's this flat three in front of the back four where Paxton and Brandon are sitting in. And it wasn't until about the 70 or 75th minute. I noticed at the 75th minute, because I literally wrote it down when I saw it happen, that all of a sudden Paxton and Brandon stepped up into the normal sort of position that you see at home, and they started to go for it, and they had chances, and they had 2 or 3 chances to steal that game late. So you're right. As a strategy, it is effective. It is, however, horrible to watch. You get outshot 20-5. Now, a lot of that stuff is coming on set plays, and a lot of it's coming from far outside, which is perfectly fine. Long distance shots are fine. You have a good goalkeeper. I am worried that this is the second game in a row where he's had 5 or 6 saves now, which was the most he had through the first 4 games. So the amount of chances are going up. Part of that is teams are getting used to what Dallas is doing. They're getting some tape on them. They kind of know how they're playing now. They're finding some weaknesses. Now, the Colorado game, record aside, Colorado's a good team. So I think New York, record aside, they're in the top 3 of the East as well. I don't know why I said record aside. They're in the top 3 of the East. They're just good. So you're talking about the last couple of games are against some of the better teams. Now, I don't think that Dallas is a top-tier team yet. They are better, 100% for sure. But I think you're still talking about a 4, 5, 6, 7 team in the standings, not a 1, 2, 3. I know they're up there now, but it's because they've had a couple of results go their way, and they've beaten a couple of teams that maybe we thought they wouldn't have. They've had a fair number of home games. So you hope that over the course of the season that they will continue to improve and develop Coach Nico's system. He did say 2 weeks ago that they had started off with all the effort on the defense and repairing the defense, and now they are going to begin working on more offensive stuff. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that translates into more fun play on the road. But you can look at like Facundo starting on the road games. He's the grinded out, dig it out, press hard, tackle, recover guy, which is amazing that Edwin's progressed his game so much that now he's the progressive build forward possession, leads the team and passes into the final third kind of guy, which is crazy that that's true, but it is. So when you're seeing Facundo start those road games, that's a clear indicator that that's what they're still doing.
Okay, but is there an alarm bell to be sounded over the fact that now they've played 3 road games and they have yet to score a goal? Now, to be fair, they've only given up 1, and they've gotten 2 draws out of the 3 games. But the fact, and I'm sure that if I was to go back and add up the number of opportunities and shots, it's a really low number of those 3 games. But is that of something of concern that we really need to circle in Buzz's famous red crayon?
No, I actually don't think it's a concern. I think if you're looking at the road games over the course of the whole season, right, a good team is going to be 500 on the road. If you can get above 500, that's incredible. So if you can manage to get a bunch of ties and not have losses, and if you can steal a game here or there with this kind of philosophy, certainly early, certainly against good teams, certainly when you're traveling far, that's how you build the foundation to being a better road team. Remember, Matt Hedges said that it was the best mentality he'd seen on the road in like 3 years. So that's where you start. It's definitely not an alarm. I mean, do we want it to be better? Of course we do. But it's not an alarm to me that they're playing a defensive first mentality, kill the game on the road. They're not a great team yet. They're just a good team, and they're going to need to kill games sometimes when you play a team that's really, really good.
All right, Dan, so if you go back and look at the New York game and you see the stats of New York out shooting Dallas 20-5 or whatever it ended up being, what was it simply just Paes playing out of his head, or are there some good signs defensively about the team that we should focus on and feel good about?
I mean, there were some good signs, limiting them to 7 shots on target from 20 shots. The vast majority coming outside the box tells you that the defense aren't just letting them walk in. They are limiting them to kind of half chances. I haven't seen the number of, the quote unquote clear cut chance stat, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't that high. I think even XG was under 2. So it's I mean, it's an interesting one because you're talking about a team that hasn't won at home in 4 games. They've had 2 ties. Obviously they shit the bed against Montreal with that weird goalkeeping issue. Columbus was an injury time equalizer, but that it's going to be one of those funny games that you can look back on later in the season and say, oh, maybe that should have been a win, or oh, maybe that was a great point after all. It's going to take a little while to get there, and I think if you look at the 7 games as a whole and like where each of those teams are right now, it's the same. We came into the start of the season saying this is a really tough schedule, and right now I want to say New York were the highest placed team currently at 9th. Your only losses to the 22nd place team in the entire league. You haven't yet faced a team who have a points per game average above 1.5 significantly. I think Nashville was like 1.57. It's it's going to be one of those you just have to see how it plays out.
Now, in your article and your review, you spent an entire section sticking up for Emma Tuamase, and I'm wondering what led you to feel the need to do that? Is the general consensus that it appeared that he didn't have a good game, or why did you feel the need to stick up for him in his play and kind of explain why in the graphs and the videos that you put?
Yeah, I mean, I was watching the game and I had a note of, Tuamase's doing pretty well. He had a couple of little slip-ups, a bad errant pass. There was a moment where he made a run upfield. He felt he was fouled. He stayed on the ground as New York broke away. But plenty of times, where he gives that kind of lead on players, knowing that he's got the pace to catch up. And I saw a lot of people complaining about his positioning, complaining about he's a defensive liability, and that. And I was just like, I didn't. That wasn't the game I watched, apparently. So just wanted to kind of put a few of the numbers out there, the position, kind of try and explain why his positioning was different to Marco Farfan, and how Paxton Pomacole's adjustment in the middle of the first half kind of affected those, the way that. I think coaches always talk about roles versus formations, and how the shape kind of rotates almost because you've got a player like Lewis Morgan on the other side who is so dangerous and was the focal point of New York's attack, while Dallas was trying to use Tuamase into Areola for much of the game. And then just some clips to say, hey, look, here's some of the stuff he did. It was pretty good. It wasn't I guess the tipping point was everyone talks about the right back debate. Who's worse, Nanu or Emma Tuamase? And it shouldn't be who's worse. It should be, okay, who actually fits the system better, who's actually playing better. Mm-hmm. So, Just trying to find those positives out of it.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it because I think the work that you put into providing the graphs and the charts and the actual analysis, and not just staring at stats like some people do these days, is really the best way to look at it. And I thought you told a really good story in that. If you're not reading Dan's reviews of the games and his kind of highlights and pinpoint analysis of it, you should. It's really good stuff. Buzz, what I'm wondering is the thing that I'm concerned about as I continue to talk about and watch this team and wonder is this now appears to be multiple games in a row where other teams have figured out how to drag Brandon and Paxton all over the field. And this goes back to our original discussion about how much work and effort they're having to put in and game out. And I do wonder, have you picked up on that? Am I seeing something that's not there? Or is that something that you think is, the fact that they're just playing with three in the middle of the field is creating this, extreme amount of effort that these two guys are having to put in and game out?
Yeah, the spaces that are giving Dallas problems right now for me is if you remember back to the Colorado game, is when Barrios shifted wide, and then he and Rosenberry both attacked into that gap from that wide position, which is basically high out above the outside back, but wider than Paxton on that side or Brandon on the other side. And there have been games where those two guys have had to shift out wide. A lot of times, of course, this team defends in what looks like a 4-5-1 look, where the two wings are going to kind of come back and sit on top of that space and help solve that problem. For whatever reason, against New York, they weren't really doing that. So that New York was getting opportunities for set plays, and they were getting balls played in from those wide areas, and they were creating opportunities. It's sort of like, for me, the last two games, Dallas plays this sort of mid to low blockish kind of look, and their center backs are not particularly fast. So there's a little bit of an ability, people I've found, I think, a little bit of a space like right behind them, not like a over the top kind of ball, but a sort of diagonal ball that sort of spins and sits up. If you have a quick striker, you can get to those, Barrios or whoever, and those are some of where the opportunities are coming. So it's going to take an adaptation from the coaching staff to solve that problem. Do they need to have those wings sit back more? Do they need to have the gaps tighten? They've looked at another formation with a double pivot in the middle. That'll change things a little bit. So there are some concerns there. I don't necessarily think it's because Paxton and Brandon are getting overworked. I think it's just the nature of the shape they're using, which puts a lot of emphasis on those outside backs to fill the vertical space. The whole wide space is abandoned for the outside backs, basically. So that's part of why the modern 8 requires so much work and so much range, is because you have to help cover that space. That's part of your responsibility. And so if you're being passive and you're sitting in, you're low blocking. We've talked about how you can low block actively or you can low block passively. And so if you're being passively, those spaces are being abandoned. And that's a problem. So work in progress for sure.
Yeah. So as the season goes on, especially in home games, because I would say if I was disappointed, and we didn't really talk about this too much in the Colorado game, but it dawned on me as I was watching this particular game, is, Nico put his team on the field at home in kind of a reactive manner. And I've yet to see Dallas really kind of put its thumbprint on the game in a, hey, we're going to dictate how this game's going to go. And I wonder, again, much like, working to tie games on the road as a strategy, maybe that is built off of, hey, we're trying to reconstruct what was so awful from last season. Do you anticipate at some point Nico will have a team on the field that's like, hey, we're playing this game our way, you have to react to us?
Well, I think Portland got pretty close to that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The
Maybe
4-1 game.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it depends on your opponent. Road games are going to be tough, but and Colorado is a really good team. I think they're one of the best teams in the West still.
Yeah.
But Portland is struggling. Their center backs were both hurt, if you remember, and Blanco had just come back, I think, and Nashville came in here and didn't really have a lot to offer offensively, and Dallas was able to control that game as well. So I think from time, it just depends on the matchup. Remember, this coach is micromanaging matchups. He's doing tactical adaptations per team. So every team, they're doing different things and trying different things, and there's been games where they've swapped Brandon and Paxton in order to take advantage of some minute way the defense on the other team played. So there are going to be games where they're going to attempt to dictate, like particular teams that don't press. Teams that don't press, Dallas is really good about pulling them apart and stretching them and giving them fits. But teams that do high press Dallas, they struggle with that. I mean, I think New York is a really good high pressing team, and that was a problem. In Colorado, I think of these days as a pretty good pressing team. They don't do it quite as high, but the way that they exploited Dallas was to spread Dallas out and made it really difficult for them across the middle of this part of the field. It's not the same as a high press, but it is a press. So, part of what's going on with this new team, with this new coach and a new tactics, is that they're still trying to figure all that stuff out. They work on build out and transition all the time. It's at least the last month or so. That's their key thing that they're trying to work on. So, when you go forward against teams that are going to play, like I don't think Houston presses, so that'll be a team I think you'll be able to make a little more of hay with, whereas Seattle, I think, is definitely going to be a problem in a couple of weeks. So, it's just every game with this, more than any other coach I think I've ever seen here, he's changing things from game to game to game based on the opponent. So you're going to see very different Dallas team from game to game, I think.
Yeah, are you surprised by what is now clearly a strategic move, not just a rotation move of Facundo, as you mentioned earlier, being the guy that he uses on the road to play that kind of like hold down the fort and grind it out position versus Cerrillo?
No, if you think about that, I think that's the thing that really shows you that that's what the philosophy is, because Edwin has become a better progressive player. Facundo has Edwin beat in almost every pure defensive category. He presses more. He successfully tackles more. He denies dribblers more. Just his pure number of presses is higher. He's a more pure grinder. But Edwin hasn't beat in almost all the offensive categories for progression and for passes into the third. So Edwin's become a better two-way player.
Yeah.
So because I was mystified by that too. Coming into this season, I would not have said that was the case. But Edwin has really advanced his game. And now that is the case. And so they're definitely choosing to go that way simply for that. Because I watch Facundo play, and I feel like he's always late to stuff. But if you look at the raw numbers, he does do it more aggressively than Edwin, which is weird because I feel like he's late all the time. Part of it, I think, is that Edwin covers a lot more ground than Facundo does. So a lot of times he's intercepting plays and blocking plays before they even happen. He's turning people back. Sometimes that doesn't show up on a stat sheet because you don't intercept or you don't tackle because they turned and went back because you were in the right position. So I think that in the context of man management and wanting to get people in and out of games and relieve pressure on 34 starts, we don't want that anyway. He wants to keep Facundo. He wants to keep Franco Jara. He wants to keep those guys dialed in and contributing to the team. So using Facundo that way is a really good way to do it, I think.
All right, but I know we need to move on to the Open Cup game, but real quickly, this now appears to be 2 games in a row, Dan, where the Alan Velasco experience seems to have settled quite a bit. And I'm wondering if you're cool with that and that doesn't have you on any kind of level of worry, or if maybe that's just the natural course of things and we're not, this isn't another example of the dreaded Dallas debut curse.
Even going back a couple before that, I think, I've definitely thought a couple times, he's not kind of flatters to deceive a little bit. Maybe it was a flash in the pan, but then it's like you say, still new to MLS, still adjusting. A young guy physically kind of growing into the style of the league and everything else. I want to see more out of him, but at the same time, it took Mauro Diaz 6 months. It took Michael Barrios, I want to say,
longer than that.
Nearly a year. Yeah, a year and a half until he had that Open Cup game where he scored 2. Fabian Castillo took, years. It's going to be interesting to see. It's definitely the highest potential, so should, in theory, have the shortest turnaround time, but it just goes to show that unless you for a young guy like that, there is no like just get here and he's instantly dialed in. It's gonna take some kind of ramp up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you look at the last 2 games against Colorado and New York, they were outpossessed, and he's not getting enough time on the ball. Like if you go back to the Chicago game, he had 57 touches, where he looked great, and then in Colorado he had 29, and New York he had 30. So when you don't have your team doesn't have the ball, then he's not getting the ball, and that's all part of it.
Yeah, but I would also point out there were a lot of times, specifically in this New York game, where he just gave the ball away too easily or was too easily dispossessed. And I think those are the moments, like if he's not getting the ball, that's one thing. But if he's not making magic more times than not when he does have the ball, that's where I begin to worry. And I also don't want to be I don't want to be impatient, and I don't want to expect too much too soon. But there is a lot of, they spent a lot of money on this kid, and he came with a ton of hype, so I don't want to get on him too hard, but that is kind of what I've seen now over the last couple of games, and I'm just trying to judge where we're all at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking at his stats by game, and he's basically under 50% on dribbles, all season. The carries are about the same. It's just a volume question. Like the ratios seem to be the same. Mm-hmm. Against Colorado and against New York, he did not pass. Like the first 3 games, he's at 71, 75, 72%, and then he drops off to 55 and 62. So there's definitely a fall off there against 2 teams that do play a pretty aggressive defense, and get on you more than don't sit back. So some of that I think is the same thing we're talking about with the whole team, where it's just what kind of team are you playing? Are you playing a team that's active or passive? Do they sit in a block? Do they come out? That's all going to affect him. 5-game sample is just,
Yeah, I know.
But also people have tape on him now, people now are aware of him. He's attracting attention, and in fact, we've seen Jesus get the game opened up for him because Velasco was over there taking all the attention,
It's kind of fair to say as well. He was definitely rushed in his few possessions against New York. As you say, with the press and everything else, and just the fact that he's seeing less at the ball, and in that position, you're a person that wants to have the ball constantly. You want to have that high volume, so you are rushing through your motions, and maybe a stat like a completed pass, the quality of the pass isn't necessarily the same as if he's getting that sort of 60 touches and and able to really open things up down the left.
On the upside, they're 3-2 since he started playing.
Yeah, no, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to.
2 ties, no losses.
I'm not trying to be pessimistic about it. Yeah. I'm just asking the question, and I realize that the reality is there's a learning curve, right? And it's very rare that anybody just walks into any league, but specifically this one, and specifically kids or people from South America. We've mentioned this 1,000 times. Oscar used to talk about the time it takes South Americans to acclimate to playing in this league. And if you go around and you look at all of those people that have come up here, no matter if they were kids or experienced veterans, they all have a time to take it. And I'm just kind of pointing out, it just appears that's the period of time that Allen is in at this point.
Yeah, I would say it actually seems like he's adapted faster than I would have expected, and hopefully some of that is perhaps a Franco Jara Argentine influence, or the new off-field program they have to try and make people feel at home and all that kind of stuff. So it's obviously a Spanish first language coach probably is a factor in that. Well, I actually think he's adapting ahead of what my expectations would have been.
All right, it is Wednesday evening as we record this particular episode. Last night was is it the 3rd round they're in of the U.S. Open Cup? Third round of the U.S. Open Cup, and up in Frisco, FC Tulsa showed up into town. I did not really watch the game. I had indoor last night, and in between my 2 games, I turned it on the phone, and I watched I think I saw the last 10 minutes of the first half. I saw the Tulsa goal. I guess I saw the Tulsa goal, and I saw the PK. And needless to say, this rotated squad, at least in the time that I watched, looked like they had their hands full with the USLC championship team.
Yeah, well, that often happens when you're playing the lower division teams.
Did I say USLC? Did I say that right? USL championship team. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, considering in the past they've lost to teams like this, they've lost to OKC, they've lost to New Mexico United. The fact that you played it, and some of those teams were even like only partial rotations. This was a complete rotation. and Dallas won the game. I don't think Tulsa really had all that many great chances. When you're talking about the ability, I think it's actually really exciting because you could look at that lineup and you could say, last year Tafari was a starter, a lock starter at the end of the season, and now he's a reserve, right? And you had you had Tuamasi in there, who last year was a starter, and now arguably, possibly, he's a reserve. And you had Shun in there last year towards the back of the season was a starter, and now he's a reserve. And O'Brien last year was a starter, and now he's a reserve. So like all these guys that are capable of being MLS starters, granted a team that missed the playoffs, they've all been knocked down a peg. So that your depth, at least in the immediate gap of the rotation, guys that are right there on the cusp of the first team, guys that can start games, performed at a relatively comprehensive level. Now, Tulsa did get a goal, but I don't think that they were really very good. It's not like Dallas was against New York. They controlled a lot more of this game, with a much larger number of possession and shots. It's something like 56% possession and 14 shots. I mean, that's a pretty overwhelming amount of the ball and control in the game. So it's not, and that's from almost across the board complete second unit. So it's actually really positive that they didn't choke the bed and burn the house down in the first Open Cup game against a USL team that's playing their biggest game of the year in a lot of ways,
Okay. Well, any outstanding performances or anything that surprised you about the game, Buzz?
My man of the match was O'Brien because I thought he was really effective early pinning Tulsa back, and he did have the game winner. He was the same guy he always is, though. It didn't stand out beyond that. Shun, I thought, was terrific. That was really good to see because, he's been in the doghouse not getting playing time. And I thought he could have had a couple of assists and had a couple of shots. Looked really good. Edwin looked great. Even the commentators who knew nothing about the team and mispronounced his name like 80 times were really impressed with Edwin. So, which is funny that you couldn't get Edwin Surreal right. That's great. Yeah. And Franco Yara, they weren't loving him very much. But, other than the fact that you got a bunch of dudes that needed minutes, got minutes, and that you didn't fall off, the performance was there, the system was there. You even got a glimpse of the new formation at the end. Jesus and Allen got a little bit of a run out just to keep going. I thought it was about as good as a third round Open Cup game can be.
All right. So Dallas does end up beating FC Tulsa 2-1. And how was the crowd last night? Pretty typical Open Cup game.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
They announced 2,000. They only had the East Stand open.
I think it was like 200. Yeah.
Okay.
No. The East was actually fairly full.
Oh, that was not visible on my television.
Wait, the East.
The East? Side that the West. Sorry, the side the cameras are actually on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
I thought it was interesting that it was the first time everybody got to see Bartlett play and some of the reactions people had.
Yeah. How did he do?
Well, I've already said my piece on him, so maybe Dan could chime in.
Well, hold on one sec. The 10 minutes that I watched, he didn't look terrible to me. I was really expecting him to be this terrible, obviously bad player, and I didn't see it. Now, again, I only saw him attempt probably 5 passes, and I think he completed 4 of them, and I saw him head a couple of balls out. Now, I did see the goal, and I couldn't quite figure out if he was a big part of the problem in that weird kind of scramble in the box on the goal. Did he miss a clear opportunity to clear it?
He whiffed it twice.
Yeah,
twice. Okay. Well,
Frank O'Hara was in the way as well. So I mean, it was a thing. Well, here's the thing, Bartlett, for me, you can understand what's so intoxicating about him and why they drafted him. The raw pieces are phenomenal: size, power, really good feet, can pass. He has everything you'd want in the raw pieces to make a good defender, except that he's not a very good defender. He reads the game a step behind, a second behind. He's often late to stuff. And in training, he's good for a couple of large mental mistakes that almost always end up in goals. Now, against FC Tulsa, he was fine. But even like in our Discord, people were talking about he's late. God, he's always late. People were noticing it. And I didn't tell people that that's what to look for. They're seeing it themselves and they're talking about it. Now,
They learn from Buzz.
Well, no, you can see it. Like if you
No, they
watch
learned.
him
That's
play-
what I'm saying. They learned what to look for from Buzz. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now this kid has got enough potential that you won't give up on him. The problem, obviously, is that he's 25 already, or he's about to be 25 already. So there's going to be a season-long effort to try and get him dialed in and get him up to speed. He just didn't play at a high enough level before this. And there's always a chance that he could come good. Like, a season playing a lot for North Texas, and all of a sudden maybe it's going to click and he's going to get it. He'll be great. It's like, it's different, but it's like Cobra, where Cobra was trash for like 8 months and all of a sudden it clicked and he's scoring goals in bunches. Maybe this guy will click because there are a lot of raw pieces in there that are really, really good. He has all the tools Matt Hedges has, except Matt Hedges is the greatest defensive player in club history, and this kid is not.
Hey, why did they stop playing Open Cup games down at SMU?
I asked that question yesterday, and nobody seems to know.
Huh. How long? Well, but then it got me thinking, it's been a while since we played Open Cup. So when was the last time they played an Open Cup game at SMU? Has it been much longer than I think it has been?
Well, they didn't play the Open Cup for 2 years. So it's when they lost to New Mexico United, I think, 3 years ago.
Okay, because that was at SMU, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder why they stopped doing that.
Yesterday was the first time they've played a lower division team at Toyota Stadium since 2014 or 15.
Yeah, it's been a long
2014.
time. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask, because you guys were at the stadium, you saw it for yourself within the last few days, is there any sign of the mythical giant new North End Shield lighting experience, smoke and fire thing?
No, but the Toyotas are now in the colors of FC Dallas and the Burn. They found a wasabi green RAV4.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is great.
I love that.
I will give them double, triple points if we find out they got that specifically wrapped in wasabi green and guacamole green.
Surely Gulf States Toyota have got to be like, oh no, it has to be like colors we actually sell. So surely they sell it.
I don't know if Toyota sells a guacamole or wasabi green color. I have to go look on their website.
I hope it has a big fire-breathing horse on the hood. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but if you notice now, there's a red and like a navy blue one down the bottom, and then the green ones on the northeast and the northwest, and then the black ones on the northeast.
I'm telling you, with the inventory issues that are happening with car manufacturers nationwide, there are some sales guys at Toyota of name any DFW area dealership going, why are we keeping cars on a stage in a stadium when we could be selling them?
You know what's funny about that? I just bought a truck last year, and Toyota did not have those inventory problems. Like they go to Toyota a lot, they'd have 100 of them. You go to a GM lot, they'd have one. Yeah, Toyota for whatever reason didn't have that problem. It's really weird, but that was like one of the trucks you could actually get was Toyota.
Maybe they make their own chips or something in Japan.
I mean, yeah, some kind of supply thing they had figured out that GM didn't. I mean, it's a totally different podcast, but I can tell you why GM has that problem. It's related to their inventory management. Believe me, I went through the whole thing trying to buy a truck.
Yeah, you and everybody else that's tried to buy a car in the last 18 months, it feels like. Yeah. My last two cars I had to buy out of state and drive them back in from out of state.
Yeah, I have a friend of a family that owns a GM dealer, so he explained it to me, and I was like, okay, I understand it now, but it's like,
fascinating.
Different podcast.
All right, but we haven't seen, nobody has seen or heard any updates on the mythical giant not interactive, but entertaining smoke fire LED lighted sign.
The giant Ferdinand? No, I've not heard.
No. The giant Ferdinand.
Yeah, Ferdinand's a bull, right? You remember Ferdinand? He's the one that sits on the likes to
I
smell
get
the
it.
fires, and he sits on a beat.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I like the name, the giant Ferdinand. Dan, you haven't heard anything?
Nothing. I was just questioning our sanity collectively then.
Why? They did not read you Ferdinand in English elementary school?
I've never heard of it.
Oh. You had to get Dan a Ferdinand book. Yeah.
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas,
Yeah.
Why is there a book about Rio Ferdinand?
Oh.
Wrong.
He's named after the bull.
True story, Dan.
Okay. I've looked through Toyota's inventory. The closest thing they actually have is a color called Cypress, which is like a forest green. So yeah, that was custom. All the others are their standard colors.
All right, if they got it wrapped in wasabi/guacamole green just for this purpose, double, triple points to whoever made that decision. Kudos to them. Well, all right. If anybody happens to see or spy the giant Ferdinand before Saturday, you better snap photos and send them to us because I got to see this thing. I want to know. I want to know what this whole bit is about, and I hope it doesn't disappoint.
By the way, the Open Cup draw for the fourth round is tomorrow, but it'll be in probably I think at 11 a.m. or something like that. So by the time you hear this podcast, we may know who they're playing. But it's the same. It's a 4-team geographical thing. So Dallas almost certainly will be grouped with Austin and Houston, and then somebody else. So it could be whoever they decide is close, maybe like New Mexico or Union Omaha, who knocked off Chicago, or maybe Sporting Kansas City. We get an all MLS group. So it'll be almost certainly your chances are Austin or Houston is next.
Are you saying that San Antonio has no chance in extra time?
Oh well, no, I am not saying
it
that.
is tied 1-1 in extra time. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, maybe it's an FC Tucson. Maybe it's it's gonna be hard. It could be St. Louis, perhaps. That'd be cool. You never know.
Legit question: would you want to play Austin in the Open Cup in the next round?
Sure. I don't care who you
or
get.
Is it too?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wondered. Or would we enjoy watching them getting knocked out by San Antonio more?
I would more enjoy San Antonio because I love the cross league matchups. But that's not because I think Dallas would beat San Antonio. It's just because it's cross league. And sometimes it's fun to go to I went to an Open Cup game. Dallas played San Antonio in the Open Cup last time around 2 years ago. And I went down there. My wife and I went down. I had a lot of good fun doing that. So, that's the Open Cup I like is these either playing a team you don't ever play or going someplace you don't ever go.
Yeah. All right. So that's happening. The draw tomorrow. Houston is this Saturday. It is a day game. And the weather, I think the weather is going to be okay. It won't be too hot. What should we anticipate in terms of lineup? Are we back to the regular starting 11 at this point, you think, Buzz?
Well, he rotated the whole team for the Tulsa game, so that's awesome. You would assume that since Faco played in New York and Edwin played against Tulsa, either one could go, but it's a home game, so it'll be Edwin, right? But what else will change? It'll be Jesus, it'll be Velasco, it'll be Areola, Paxton, Brandon, and Edwin, presumably. Farfan, Martinez, Hedges. The only question is Nanu's questionable. I think it's a hammy. Is he questionable? Is he back or not? So can Tuamasi go 3 games in a week? Could they use Manjoma a second time, or was Nanu back? That's the only question in the team at this point is that right back spot.
Okay. Well, that is at 2 p.m. And again, maybe we'll get to see the debut of the giant new sign. I hope that's not the highlight of the game, by the way. I hope there's more to be excited about than a giant sign.
Do you guys, I want to ask your opinion about this. Every time now, since Fafa Pico left Dallas, every time he plays for Houston against Dallas, it looks to me like he is really mad at Dallas. He seems to have like this chip on his shoulder. Am I misreading that? It sure seems like it to me.
I saw this come up in the Discord. And somebody was like, I haven't been watching the team as long as many of you. And then he brought up this thing about Fafa, and I was like, Fafa was here like less than 2 years ago. I mean, clearly you are a brand new fan of this team because Fafa literally was here just over 1 season ago. And my next question related to this was, did Dallas ever play Philadelphia with Fafa? Because I think the answer to your question is, how did Fafa treat that game when he got to play against Philadelphia, who traded him?
No, I've only seen this reaction since Dallas basically traded him away and dumped him. But it's like, am I crazy that I'm thinking he has this hyper negative, like he gets in people's faces and brings. Remember, he brought his fists up on Pepe?
Yeah.
He wanted to fight Pepe or something.
Yeah, no,
I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is something there, and I'm sure he's pissed off he got traded again. I'm sure that probably hurt his feelers. And he had a great season last year. Maybe he ended up in a better place. But no, I think what you've picked up on is not unique to you. I think everybody else has noticed it.
I should make sure I wasn't imagining it because, every once in a while, yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know what to expect from Houston. I know they're going through their own set of changes and with the new coach and everything. So I do think it makes for an interesting matchup for this particular weekend.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, anytime you got to the difference between this game this time and the teams in the past is that both have new coaches, both have new ownership not new ownership. Houston has new ownership who's changed the way they behave, and Dallas is acting like they have new ownership, and they've changed every way they behave across the organization. And both these clubs are in the top, 5 in the West. I mean, that adds a spice to this thing that we haven't had in a long time. Both these teams are going to want to prove that they're better, more improved than the other one. This is going to be a spicy game. I mean, I think this is as excited as people have been in a long time to play Houston, both in the team and in the fan base, I think.
Yeah. Well, it is unusual that the league is literally turned over, that the teams from California and Texas that didn't make the playoffs are essentially filling up the top of the West this year. I find that fascinating.
Well, some of that is Champions League, and squad rotation,
Sure.
and some of it's just a short sample size. But for sure, all 5 of those teams, the 2 LA teams and the 3 Texas teams, they're all better, unquestionably.
Right.
So and they've put things together in a way that they've gotten early season results. It is early season. The weather's going to change things. The heat's going to change things. Champions League will end, and Seattle will start winning games at a fast clip. But still, there's so much parity in this league. The difference between being really good and really bad could be just a couple players, make a few changes and you make a big leap. Houston is definitely better than they were last year. I don't think they're as good as Dallas, but I'm probably
Austin
biased.
is clearly better. I mean, Austin is
better, yeah.
I know people are going to want to bang on their schedule, but if you really go take a look at Dallas's schedule, I'm not sure Dallas's schedule is really all that more impressive than what Austin has had to deal with. And look, I love to troll Austin as much as the next guy, but the fact that they came back and beat and won that game against DC the other day, that's impressive. That's a good result on the road to be down like that and to come back and win a game is something to feel good about if you're an Austin fan.
Houston's defense is definitely better. Their offense is interesting because they went out inside a DP9, Santiago Ferreira, which is funny. Sebas Ferreira, excuse me. But he's a prototypical high big 9, and they don't play with like high wide wings. They play with like these false wings like Fafa and either Barrett or Paes on the other side that slash. So like they're having this disconnect problem that we used to have here in the front line where the wings don't match the 9, so they're a work in progress offensively, but they're pretty good defensively. So it'll be a fun game.
Hey, look, I believe it is in this club's best interest when Houston and Austin are good on the field, right? I think that helps. And Austin being good off the field in its debut season and continuing to do it, I think a byproduct of that is some of the changes you've seen off the field with Dallas. I don't think you cannot relate those two things.
And Houston, the best thing that happened to Dallas and Houston was Austin off the field.
Yeah.
Making them, because even if it's just to look in the mirror and go, man, what are we doing? But also to prove that you can do it in Texas. Now I know new team and all that stuff, whatever. The bottom line is those stands are full. It can be done in Texas. And since then, both Houston and Dallas have changed their ways off the field. And that's good. That's good for soccer. It's good for MLS. It's good for all of us.
Damn it. I think we said too many nice things about Austin.
You can not like them and still acknowledge the fact that they're doing amazing things in the stands. I mean, having gone to a game there, that shit is amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, man.
I know.
Is it worth $70 though?
That seems like a high price to me.
I got my tickets handed to me by a season ticket holder.
Well, the price and information for FC Dallas away there came out today, and that's $70 or $69. Sorry.
Yeah, I
Nice.
always think that soccer tickets are too expensive. I think that on the national team, I think that of all MLS teams, it's like I get that you want to indicate that you're, and I'm sure some ticket guy will tell me I'm an idiot, but I feel like, yes, I understand that you want to have your tickets be perceived as a valuable thing. But the bottom line to me is like, until there's 50,000 people in the stands, who gives a crap how valuable people perceive your tickets to be? It's like, sell them for $20 and fill the place up. Like North Texas. When North Texas tickets are $20, I'm like, you're insane. They should be $5.
Okay, but here's the deal, Buzz. When you're running a business and you have limited inventory and you only, the limited inventory is the set of seats that you can sell, and then the number of those times you can sell those seats. You need to get the max value out of them as you can. And if you can sell a seat for $70, then you're kind of responsible to your business to sell the seat for $70.
Sure, I'm not even talking about Austin $70. I'm talking about everybody.
San Antonio just went ahead.
I'm talking about Houston or Dallas that are not selling either stadiums that have higher price tickets.
Oh,
because
yes.
What's better, to maximize the revenue today or pack out my stadium and build an audience?
Yes, and
I wasn't talking about Austin.
And I think what we've seen in Dallas with them selling these games at better attendance at lower ticket prices. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I saw earlier today an advertisement for them doing 2-for-1 for Saturday against Houston.
Yeah, and the last couple games have been noticeably better in attendance. To me, that's been great. So.
Yeah, Dallas's game day experience and that whole thing is not worth the price they've been charging the last several years. And if they want to start getting that place more full, they're going to have to lower the price to whatever the market is willing to pay to get people to come to the games. That's just the reality of the deal. In Austin, they can sell them for whatever they want because people will pay that amount to go because it's such a kick-ass experience.
Yeah, when your place is sold out, you can charge whatever you want.
Right.
That's
and I know it sucks for the guys that want to travel down there. And I get the argument that there is a case to be made for Major League Soccer to find some way to unify that pricing structure so that it encourages people to travel, because that's part of the experience that this league should want to try to encourage.
Yeah.
But they're also beholden to trying to make money, and that's just whether anybody likes it or not. That's what the whole point of this is for people to make money. It just is.
I don't hate that league wide 200 seats for the visitors at some price idea. I think that's actually not a bad idea.
I agree.
Because it facilitates. There is something to be said for the traveling fan, as you say. But beyond that couple hundred seats or whatever, then you're on your own. That you got to buy. When I went, I had to buy a seat in the regular price section, two actually. So, I paid it. No big deal.
Right. I got it. All right. We beat that to death. Okay. Well, thanks for the update, Dan, on the score. We'll see how that plays out over time, right? Are they in extra time now?
They're in
98th minute.
So is Open Cup 2 15-minute, just standard added 2 15-minute added extra periods and then penalty kicks?
Yeah, 2 15s.
Okay.
Which they're in. They're in the 15s. That's
okay.
So.
The reason why I got thrown off is they were saying 98 earlier, and I realized now on this scorecard they actually went to 98 minutes. They added 8 minutes of added time in the second half. That's where I got confused. Okay, so now they're in the first half of added time, or extra time, I mean. What a game. All right, very good. Anything else we need to cover today, guys?
Well, the Academy season is actually almost over. We have the MLS Next playoffs soon. So that'll be coming up in terms of Academy watch. And then they'll reshuffle for the next season, which is really, not like 3 months away, which is crazy. So you'll get into a window where you might begin to possibly see a homegrown or two sort of over the next 4 or 5 months, possibly. And also, I think this weekend, I believe it's a doubleheader. I think there's a North Texas SC game after the Houston game. I think they're playing Dos. Dynamo Dos, that's what they call their second team.
Was the plan originally,
yeah. Is that not true anymore? Because Dos is in first place and North Texas.
I assume it is.
Yeah. Dos is in first place and North Texas is in second place. So that's a top of the table matchup after the FC Dallas game against another rival. I've seen that Houston team play North Texas before. That Houston team is really good. So if you want to stick around and watch an excellent game, you're going to get one. Those are two of the best teams in Next Pro.
Can we call them by their intended Windows 3.1 application name of Dynamo DOS?
DOS. I think technically the logo is a 2, but they refer to it as Dynamo DOS if you're into that kind of thing. Branding.
They're just ripping off LA.
Yep.
All right. I guess we'll see how things go this particular weekend. Buzz, real quick. Dallas Cup came to a close this past weekend. The tournament is trying to bring itself back to its former state pre-pandemic. Can you briefly summarize for those that didn't pay too close attention how FC Dallas and the Academy and or other teams did in the tournament?
The Academy, not so great. Only one Academy team got out of the group stage, and that was the U14s, which had the kid I really liked in it, and then they proceeded to lose to a really bad team. The premier teams, which are all the second tier teams, all did really well. A bunch of them advanced deep into the Dallas Cup, managed to get to some finals and stuff. The girls' side, they won 2 championships. So the collective youth program as a whole did pretty well. The Academy, not so much. But, we've talked about it a million times how gutted the 19s are. And so that caused this cascade of these young players moving up and moving up and moving up. So Dallas is very young across the board. And for the most part, when you play a lot of these teams, particularly the domestic ones, of course, not the international teams, but you play these domestic teams, a lot of them, it's like, this is their Super Bowl. They're going to remember forever that they beat FC Dallas, and some of the Dallas teams had some bad luck and such like that. There's a lot of excuses going on for why they didn't advance, but the bottom line is they didn't advance. And that's part of, the loss for FC Dallas is the loss of chance to get competitive, good games. That's what they lament more than not winning the whole thing. The bottom line is part of analysis of players, part of evaluation of potential pros is your ability to step up in big games. Dallas puts a lot of emphasis on these big tournaments in terms of their analysis of players because of the fact they play crap teams and beat them 8-1 all the time during the regular season. So when you finally get up against really good teams, they really pay attention and these games become really important. So if you don't step up, if you don't take it to the next level, if you don't do things to win these games, find a way, as Oscar used to say, can be fairly indicative. So overall, not a great series of performances by the Academy, in these 2 GA Cup and Dallas Cup. It wasn't a great Easter weekend by any means.
How did your Wonder Kid turn out for the tournament?
He got stifled. They played a team from Oklahoma Energy, which is a premier team, which is a division below them. And that team, it was funny. I actually did a burn on this. I had a funny conversation with a coach after the game because I watched the Oklahoma team play and I thought, boy, those guys are really well coached. They're incredibly disciplined in their shape. Their game plan was very clear and specific to stifle the Dallas creativity. They had one guy up top who was about 6'3" and weighed 215 pounds of muscle, and he's 13.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
So they just, every time they got the ball, they booted it up there to him. They didn't just like hoof it long. They played it up there to him, and he would shrug off like 5 players and knock them all down and run in on goal. Eventually that worked and they scored. So to me, I watched that game and I'm like, man, that was a really smart game plan. Their team was set up to win the game. Their players were happy. Their parents were happy. Their coaches were happy. They're like, holy crap, we beat FC Dallas. So the rest of their lives, the kids are going to be able to say, hey, that dude that plays for the pro team, I beat that dude when we were kids, right? Yet I talked to this coach after the game, and he's railing on how they have none of those kids are being served. They're not being developed. There's no game plan. They didn't even try and play soccer. And I'm like, yeah, but they won, right? So sometimes I think it's an interesting question to say, do we occasionally lose sight with FC Dallas of they're playing for this progression and for this development? They play a system, they put the kids in good spot, and they want the kids to rise up and do something to win the game, to do something in the Dallas way with this good movement of the ball on the ground, this crisp passing, this 4-3-3, these ding, ding, ding build-ups up the field. Oklahoma didn't have any of that shit, and they won. So
right.
What's the object of the game? So, I mean, that's a debate you can have for 100 years about youth soccer. This is the prototypical, they put their big, strong, fast, bigger guys in a position to win the game. And that's bad for the development of soccer players, definitely. But they advanced.
But both of those teams have different goals.
Absolutely.
Right? Like
yeah.
Dallas's goal is to grow players into pro players, and Oklahoma is to just throw kids out there and win games. And those are just, I mean, maybe I'm saying the same thing you said, but that to me is you could see why Dallas would be disappointed. But if that's part of the progress of them becoming professional soccer players, then they probably got something out of it too.
Yeah, they did. that's part of the process with FC Dallas is, okay, what didn't you do? Like where could you have been better? We want to play this certain way. The ball's not moving fast enough. The ball's not doing this. It's not doing that. Versus Oklahoma is all about, we advanced. And there's a school for both of those things. They both can have value. That's what I thought was so weird to rip them as like, it's horrible coaching. I was like, I mean, is it? It's horrible development, but it's great coaching because you won. They had a game plan and they executed it. So it's the youth argument, Peter, people have been having for years. This. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And Dallas plays a bunch of tiny little dudes that are amazing on the ball. And sometimes at the 14 and 15 level, they get absolutely run over because at that age group, you can have dudes that are 6'3" and you can have dudes that are like 4'3", but in the long run, it'll help Dallas pay off in terms of developing your Paul Ariolas and your Alan Velasquez and your Jesus Ferreiras. But right now, it means you don't win games in the academy because you're smaller and younger than everybody else. That's how you get better though, right?
Exactly. Okay, Dan, anything else you'd like to throw in here before I shut this shop up?
Yeah, nice to see Antonio Carrera and Dante Seeley make the under-20s as they prepare for the CONCACAF Under-20 Championship.
Okay.
Two kids at the 15s also, Bryce Outman and Michael, how do I pronounce his name?
The one with the really long name.
Yeah, Cordo Tulsa, who's basically a Ryan Hollingshead clone. He's awesome. And Bryce Outman is a Alan Velasco clone.
Did he break his neck trying to rescue people from an ice storm car accident?
No. I mean that he can play anywhere at a really high level. He's often an outside back like Ryan, but he's a really quality all-around player. They literally use him everywhere on the field, and he's so good that he gets called up into the national team doing that, which tells you how good he is.
All right, good for him.
This is Stephanie Borden again, reminding you that Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90, your source for FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. Check out the new arrivals dropping daily. Gear from leagues around the world. Fresh Serie A, Premier League, Bundesliga, and of course, MLS and FC Dallas Club merch available now. Remember, Third Degree listeners get 20% off at soccer90.com with promo code Third Degree. Some exclusions may apply.
Dan, thank you very much. Good to talk to you again, sir.
Thank you. Good to talk to you. Always a pleasure, never a chore.
I take that as the compliment I believe you meant it to be. Buzz, thank you.
And thank you, sir, for hosting.
Absolutely. And thank you, you FC Dallas curious fan. We'll speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Tommy Boo's home.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.